Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Question: what do you think of the leaked iPhone 4.0 prototype?
Oh, you mean the next-gen iPhone hardware?
Yes.
Yeah, this apparently hit the internet over the weekend. Some leaked screenshots and videos of what was purported to be the next-generation iPhone hardware. And, over the past, I guess it would be hours, we've only seen and heard verification that it is most likely the next-gen iPhone hardware. It is. And this is, again, according to reports specifically from Gizmodo, who have allegedly, or had, I should say, allegedly paid $10,000 to get that product, to get that device in an unofficial capacity. It looks like it's real. In fact, Gizmodo has gone as far as to post the name of the Apple engineer who allegedly lost the device. So now we've got a couple of questions. One, is this indeed the next iPhone? If it is, it's kind of exciting because of the things that they were showing off in a hardware capacity. The volume controls being two separate buttons, which makes sense if you would intend on those controls to work in a different capacity under different applications. Say one could double as a camera snapping button, an actual physical hardware camera snapping button in the camera app, etc. Another thing that was notable was a higher density screen, so a higher pixels per inch. That's impressive, basically quadrupling the amount of pixels that are on the current iPhone screen. Doubling in numbers, but of course quadrupling in actual capacity. The another addition that is apparent in whatever device was picked up was a front-facing camera. That's very exciting. And then, of course, on the other side, a higher resolution camera with a flash. So we may very well see some exciting things if this is real. If it's a prototype, this is most likely the most elaborate hoax. As far as iPhone hardware is concerned, most hoaxes are debunked, as some kind of photoshopping of sorts. But we've actually seen a breakdown in hardware by Gizmodo, at least, and they believe that it is absolutely real. The back of the device is some kind of, not plastic, but I guess some kind of glass, which makes sense because on a phone you want a higher capacity for pulling in your radio reception, or certainly broadcasting, to get to the towers. So,
right, because one of the problems with the first-gen iPhone was the reason it had semi-bad reception was the fact that they use a metal backing, which interferes with the antenna. That's why with the iPad they went with a plastic center where the Apple is. That's actually plastic, which allows for complete line of sight to whatever signals that may be coming in.
Well, and the interesting thing is, too, with the iPad, it's already been lambasted for having relatively weak Wi-Fi reception. We'll see how the 3G connectivity goes. Either way, it does look real. Apple has not officially responded, and we're looking at approximately 2 months till when we would actually hear in some kind of official capacity what the next-gen iPhone would be. It'll be interesting to see if Apple does, in fact, respond to this. Some say that it was a leak, it was intentional. Others say, no, there's no way, they wouldn't have given it to Gizmodo. They're trying to draw as much attention. If it was a leak, they would be trying to draw as much attention away from other products as they could. Android devices or beyond. And let's face it, the closest thing Apple has to a competitor at this point is Android. At some point during the holiday season this year, Windows Mobile will become a contender, finally, for the first time against the iPhone, for real. But as far as hardware goes, this one seems to pretty much solve a lot of the, shortcomings that people perceived it to have. No front-facing camera, which was a nicety at this point, because there are not a lot of devices out there, if any, that have a front-facing camera, at least any that have a wide adoption. A flash for the camera, a higher resolution camera, a higher density screen. The iPhone, of course, is getting better and better and better and better. If this is real, you're going to see a massive amount of upgrades. I mean, not just because of the optics or the screen, likely the speed that goes along with it. Especially if Apple basically ports iChat to the iPhone and starts to enable, in some capacity, whether over a 3G network, over AT&T or Wi-Fi, some kind of video calling, like live video calling between people on the iPhone. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if this is real and how Apple decides to respond.
My main concern is that we don't know, since I believe Apple locked out the interface of the 4G prototype, so they can't really tell what camera does what. I'm afraid that what they did was, instead of making the back and front camera both able to do video and pictures, I'm afraid that they made the back camera strictly for pictures and no video, and the front-facing camera for video. So, you can still do what you want to do, which is you like to show your face. You like to be in front of the camera. You don't really like to be behind the camera, showing people stuff in front of you. You rather be at the center of the content, because that's what people are coming to see. They don't want to see wherever you're pointing the camera at the time.
I don't.
My concern is that in order to, if you do need to show something like an app, on the iPad, or if you want to show, the angels flying overhead, in their jets, you're going to have to turn the camera away from you, so you have the same problem you had with the first generation.
Uncle John, I don't think that's going to be the case. Number one, because most people use cameras with the screen facing towards them and the lens facing outward. That is the use case. If anything, what you would see is a slightly lower, lower resolution optical sensor on the front-facing camera. That would be the camera that would be placed up here next to the earpiece, or I guess the speaker, through which you can hear, rather than the outward-facing camera. So you got the inward-facing camera would be a lower resolution, theoretically. I mean, again, no one really knows, but it would make more sense to throttle the resolution of the camera that was faced towards you, because you wouldn't need it to be HD, and then have HD recording capabilities outwardly, that in accompaniment with the flash. Then, of course, the iPhone would pretty much kill just about every pocket camera out there. I would use it over, carrying around a separate device, no doubt about it, because I'm carrying around the iPhone anyway, and it would make sense. But I don't think it's going to... It would be... Theoretically, it would be the exact opposite of what you're suggesting, if only because a front-facing camera would be specifically designed to optimize for a face-to-face video chat. And you wouldn't need a super high resolution, especially if you're pushing over a wireless network that can barely handle the data traffic now.
Right. So what do you think of it having two microphone ports, I believe is what they say had?
Well, that was, again, according to, I believe it was Jason Chen on Gizmodo. He did a quick video synopsis.
Don't do that.
And they didn't really actually show it working. They just, basically held up the hardware. It was a bit more boxy in design, and nothing, horrible. They say, it felt pretty solid in their hands. They were saying that basically the microphone on top and then on the bottom. Well, if it's a phone, you've got to talk somewhere, and it's going to be at the bottom of the phone, not at the top. Right? So you're going to need some kind of, audio sensor on the bottom. So I don't think that's changed in any capacity. What I'd like to hear is better quality speakers out of the iPhone. I'm often clipping audio out of the iPhone speakers. They're not amazing. That's one thing that I wish they would improve upon. But it doesn't surprise me, because you need a place to talk.
And what do you think of the new form factor with the slick back instead of the curved ergonomic back?
For me, it's less of an issue. I've never really been that hung up on the actual physical design of the iPhone. It's more about the experience that it enables. So I was less not number one impressed, by going to a slightly more streamlined curved design. So seeing the new alleged, we got to use that word, alleged. We don't know if this is real. That's why I've hesitated to even talk about it. I don't like really kind of getting caught up in the hoopla. I mean, we might as well be talking about jetpacks and flying cars at this point. Just like talking about, well, is the iPhone going to be on Verizon? We won't know until Apple officially says that, yes, this is real. That's the big.
That brings up a very interesting point, though. Apple has refused to comment either way on it.
They won't. Uncle John, they won't.
Outright, they say, yes, that's a fake.
They won't.
That's not our.
They won't. They won't. They will not comment on it. If they do, I would be shocked. They won't comment on it because if anything, it's only going to build up momentum for the time where they officially announce it. If Apple's not ready to pre-announce anything until WWDC, which is going to be the time that it will allegedly be announced this summer, a couple months, they're not going to do it now. Why would they do it now? They're not prepared for an event. They don't need to do the event right now. If anything, they're just creating more energy for that event. This is working in Apple's favor, not against them at all. There's not one thing. I mean, if this thing leaked out and they didn't say anything about a front-facing camera or a flash, you would have all these detractors. Here's my question for you, Uncle John. It's a more pertinent question. What could anybody complain about at this point? In terms of what can they complain about? Well, the flash is on the right side of the camera, not the left. Give me a break. Every single iPhone, every iteration of hardware design. I mean, the one thing they could complain about is, I have all these iPhone accessories that will no longer accommodate it. Well, that happened with the original iPhone moving up to the iPhone 3G. I was grateful that the 3GS had the same form factor as the 3G, so I was able to bring over a few of my accessories. But, that's just the nature of the beast with any hardware. Any hardware. I mean, it's the same, iPod dock connector, on the bottom of the phone, so that, they're not likely going to change that with as many products that are out in the field. I think the bigger thing to ask is the question to ask is why would Apple need to say anything? The onus is not on them. They don't need to say anything. If anything, they're getting market research right now. They're seeing how excited people are in hearing about these potential changes in their favorite platform. That's the bottom line. And as I said,
people will probably complain about things that interfere with their current cases and whatnot. But they also need to realize that usually when any product changes, the first thing they do is they say, "Hey, our form factor has changed. I know that you produce third-party production accessories for our device, and here's what our new form factor is," so they can go ahead and get ready for the new line that's coming out with the new form factor.
It's a given.
Flip HD, they made a big, huge flaw when they went ahead and redid it for the Nano, and they failed to inform their third-party production assistants, that make cases and whatnot, that the format has changed. And they went ahead and said, "Oh yeah, it's going to work for the new, the new Nanos," because they assumed that it was just going to be a higher resolution. They didn't know that everything was going to be relocated, like the lens was going to be moved more towards the center, and the button was going to be relocated. So all these people bought those cases thinking, "Oh, it's going to work for the new generation," and then it didn't. I have Apple make a big, huge flip-flop like that.
Right, but you can make so much money on accessories. The reason why I'm not all that excited to go to CES when I'm asked to go is that every other booth is for iPod accessories. You can make $1 million by starting an iPod accessory company. I kid you not. In fact, I've got a couple of ideas for designs for iPod, iPad, etc. accessories. I could design accessories and make money. I don't know how it's done. Seriously, there's so many accessory companies out there. A lot of it's junk, but that doesn't mean anything. People will buy anything, especially if it's a good price. So, that's the question, for me, is why would Apple need to respond? They may. I'm not saying they won't. I don't think it's very likely that they will. I also don't think that it's very likely that this was an official leak. It works in their favor. Apple loses, if anything, a little bit of steam. It takes some wind out of Steve Jobs' sails. But at the same time, you've created a bit of a kerfuffle in the marketplace. Everybody's been talking about Android. No one knows what the new iPhone is. Well, now we've kind of got a sneak peek as to what may be coming down the pike. Now, where it gets dangerous is like what happened with the iPad. There was allegations that the iPad was going to have a camera, and it was going to have an SD port, and it was going to have this, and it was going to have that, and it was going to have the other thing. Well, what happened? It didn't. And so many people were disappointed because of all the rumors. This Uncle John, honestly, to go back to what I was saying before, this is why I don't like talking about things that are just either A, prototypes, or, B, unofficial. Rumors. Talking about rumors, if anything, destroys credibility. All I can do is say, allegedly, and what, might be exciting about it. But the last thing I want to do is create excitement for a device that Apple hasn't announced.
Yeah. But
this is one of the reasons you did not.
A leak like this is, even if it is a fake, completely bogus, there's nothing real about it at all. Let's go with this assumption. The thing is, people like Palm.
Well, Palm's dead. I mean, honestly, Uncle John, dude, Palm is, and I mean this with all respect.
Well, I'm just saying, people like Palm will look at that device and say, even if they're not doing this, we should go in that direction because look at all these people who are getting hyped up about this supposed, iPhone prototype. And it just serves to infuse other manufacturers with the idea of going in that direction and maybe beat them to the market.
But at this point, it doesn't matter if you're first. And I made this argument with the rumors of the iPad and the actual release of the iPad. People have been saying, well, but this netbook does this, or this tablet does this, and this tablet does this, and it did it first. Well, once the device is released, it doesn't matter who did it first. It matters who does it best. And that's where Apple has been able to lay down a trump card every single time. Google is closer to Windows Mobile than it is to the iPhone in an Android fashion in that particular ecosystem. It's not like Android is not like the iPhone. It's like the iPhone in the sense that it does things that a smartphone can do, but Google takes a different approach. It's an open source operating system. They give it away. They give it away. Apple doesn't. Apple controls everything. Name, any other device manufacturer on the planet that does the same thing. Apple really, it doesn't need to worry about competition. It can create this kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the marketplace. Yes, people will be wondering, well, should I wait for the next iPhone? Well, hell, I would have told them to do that anyway. And if anything, it just gets them excited to hear more about what's coming in the next iPhone. And there will be a next iPhone. What I don't want to set is expectations that it's going to have everything that has allegedly been placed in this most likely working prototype, this working model of the next gen iPhone, not just form factor, but specific hardware capabilities. The front-facing camera, the flash on the back, higher density resolution screen. This is it's a big deal. It's a huge, huge, huge deal.
I can't agree with you more.
And I appreciate you asking, Uncle John. I'm not mad at you at all. This is one of the reasons why I don't like speculating and I don't like furthering rumors. If you go back to my videos, you'll notice that the first time I talked about the iPad was after Apple said something. Not one moment before, not one video before did I mention anything about it. Not an alleged name, not alleged prototypes, not alleged screenshots. I don't like talking about that stuff. I just don't like talking about prototypes. Not until it's in hands or something that's a working model.